I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on creating this retainer clip in Solidworks. I know many of you have been working on it and have tried it and probably have done different things. I want to go through how I would do it, and maybe this will kind of give you some ideas and some other tips and tricks with working with Solidworks. So first thing I want to do, take a look at the retainer clip part drawing, and I'm going to determine that this is going to be done in a single extrusion. Basically, if we take a look at our part here, it's a profile that has a given depth associated with it. The depth is right up here. We have the profile shown here, and it is shown that it is centered about or symmetric about this center line. So I'm going to create a mirrored object. So I'm only going to do half of this object, get this geometry all put in, and then I'm going to mirror it and then create it that way. Now the detail is shown over here in detail A. So basically all I need to do is get a general shape, and then I'm going to start putting all these dimensions in and the constraints that you need to get this part made. So that's the part. Let's go over to SolidWorks and start working on it. So now we're in SolidWorks. I do have a part already started. I'm going to select on my front plane. I'm going to go up to my sketch, start my sketch, and now I'm going to start drawing. Now, again, it is going to be mirrored, so first thing I'm going to do is start with a center line. So center line right here. Now, it doesn't matter what size center line this is. I'm just going to put one in there to anchor our drawing, essentially. And I started at the origin. Don't have to, but usually a good idea to start anchoring your stuff to the origin. So now the next thing I'm going to do is start drawing our general shape. Now I'm going to start with the line tool. Now I'm going to start at the mirror axis. So here I'm going to start here. I do have this snap. Now this is showing a vertical relationship to that line, and I do want this point to start there. So that vertical line relationship is important to me. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to make a horizontal line. I want that to be a horizontal line, so I'm going to come over. I'm not going to worry about that fillet in the corner or the rounded corner yet. I'm going to put it in as a square corner. So now I'm going to make another vertical line for the outside, and I am going to come over and snap to a horizontal line in a line with our origin. So I want that relationship on there. So I'm being very conscious of the relationships that are being shown as I go around making the lines. So now I'll come over. Now I know I'm going to have an angle here. I know it's 45. I'm just going to put it in at an angle so I can modify that later. I'm going to have a straight vertical line here. I'm going to have another line that's going to come back at an angle. Now I'm going to be very careful with this relationship because I know that this point right here is going to be in line with the next line that I'm going to draw here. So there's a vertical relationship. You can see that with that vertical line there. Here I don't have that vertical, well, let's see, there's a lot of snaps going on here, but I'm going to get this vertical line. It shows the dotted line going down to that point. That's what I want. So I'm going to keep that in there. Now I'm going to come up with my vertical line. Now I need to put a little step in here. Now you can see there are other relationships that'll come in here. So if I just come in and click on this, I might get some relationship that I don't want, which can make this very difficult to work with later on. So I want this to be a horizontal line, but I don't want any other snaps on it. So I'm just going to come over here, click on it, come up again. Oops, that put in a relationship that I didn't want. Let's see. Maybe it didn't put one in, so I'm going to just delete this off just so that we can make sure I got the right one in. So I'm going to go back into my line here and there, and then I'm going to go all the way back to the center line. And again, I have a vertical relationship and a horizontal relationship on that line. I'm going to click, and that is going to be kind of the end of my part. Now if we take a look at this part, or this section that I've drawn so far, looks kind of like what we want, and that's really talking about design intent, and we just want to get a kind of the general shape of what we're going to have. Now we can go back in and start modifying it. Well, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is that when I drew this, I didn't pay any attention to the size that this was, the size that I was drawing this, and I wanted to get scaled to be the right size for our part. So I know if we go back to our drawing here, this is 1.46 inches wide, so I want it roughly that size, or more ideally, exactly that size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a single dimension. Don't put in any more, just one, and I'm going to start with this overall dimension from, I'm going to click on this point to this line. Now that is half of the entire width of our part. Now if you remember, this is supposed to be 1.46 or half of 1.46 because it's only half of the width of our part. But we have it at 5.7, way too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in and I'm going to put 1.46 is the width of the entire part, but we only want half, so I'm going to say divide by 2, so you can put math in here and it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to hit enter. You can see it changes that dimension and it scales everything such that it doesn't change any of the other relationships between the lines like it would if I had added another dimension in here. So that's where we want to start. Now once I have this dimension in here, let's kind of finish off and put this radius in on the corner. So we're going to come up here to sketch fillet. Once we click on that, we want to make sure that we put in our fillet parameters properly. It is a 1/10 of an inch radius. It defaults to a 1/10 of an inch. I come over here, I can click on that corner. It shows me a preview. I say, yep, that's what I want, and I have that in there. So now I've got that radius. Now I just need to start working the rest of the dimensions. So if you follow all of the dimensions that are shown on the part, it makes it actually pretty easy to do this. So I'm going to go to Smart Dimension. I'm going to kind of do some of these vertical ones right away. So let's go to here to there. So this is supposed to be 0.1. So I'll put that in. And then I've got another dimension from here to here. Now you can see I'm kind of adding these dimensions in kind of in a logical manner going from the top to the bottom. And this is supposed to be 0.12. I'm going to press enter. And now let's see, I go down to the next one and the next dimension. Well, the next dimension I'm going to put in because I can see that I'm going to probably run into some changes here because this is probably not the right height. So I'm going to put in an overall height first before we do too much more. So I'm going to go from the top line down to this bottom line and right here, and this is supposed to be 0.5. So I've got that, and then the next dimension I need to go is 0.26, and that's from this line all the way down to this point. So the end of that line right there, so that's supposed to be 0.26. 0.26. Let's get that on there properly. There we go. And we've got something wrong here. So this is not acting right. Oops, I've got the dimension wrong over here. So this is supposed to be 0.58, not 0.50. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And now it did make some of my geometry down here a little wonky, but we can fix that pretty easy. So I'm going to hit escape. What I'm going to do is I want that geometry to look right. So I'm going to grab this point and I'm going to drag it up just like this. Okay, so now I've got that dragged up. So let's add in a few of our other dimensions that we need to have. And let's see, I'm going to scroll out here just a little bit. How about, let's add in this dimension. From here, no, actually I selected that midpoint. So I'll go from the line. So a lot of times one of the things I'll add here is when you go over the center of the line, it's going to actually select the midpoint. You can see the relationship selector there. It shows a dot in the middle of a line. That's the midpoint. A lot of times we don't want to select that point. We want to select the line. So kind of pull off of the center. Try not to select lines in the center of the line. So we're going to select that line, and then I'm going to select this line, and that is dimensioned as 0.06. Plug that in. And let's do this width also. So there to there, which is listed as 0.08. Okay, so now we're getting much closer there. So we have that, and that, and that. And let's see here. So now we need to put in a couple other dimensions. And let's go down to here. We can see that this is a chamfer. and we have an angle and a dimension. So the angle that we're going to do is we're going to use the Smart Dimension tool, click on that line, click on this other line, and we're going to put an angle in, and it's going to be 45. So if I move my cursor right here, I get the right angle dimension, whereas over here I don't get the right angle dimension. So where I put my dimension is important. So I'm going to click that down. I'm going to say that's going to be 45 degrees. The other thing that I need to do is have a smart dimension from basically this line, and again I selected that midpoint, so I'm going to escape out of there and select the line, and then I'm going to select the point right here, and that is 0.3, or I'm going to put that in as 0.03. And let's see, the last one I've got is this vertical dimension of this line. So if I click on this line, you can see as I move around, it's going to give me different dimensions: the horizontal, the actual length of it, or the vertical distance here. And the vertical distance is the one that I want, and that's going to be 0.01. And now we've got that in there. So now let's see, this part is not turning in all black yet. So I look over here and I can see that these dimensions, these didn't hold true. So I'm going to put in a couple constraints and see what happens here. So I'm going to add a relationship. So I want this point to be in line with this center line. So I'm going to click on that center line, click on that end point, and I have a sketch dimension, so I'm going to delete that off. And I'm going to make these coincident. I've got that coincident, and I'm going to go in and do the same thing, the center line to this point, just to make sure that those are, it looks like they must have a relationship in there already. So we're good there. And let's see, I need to add one more dimension in here, or a relationship. I'm going to look at this bottom line. Oh, I see. There's a, I'm taking a look at this. This area down here, blue, is still not constrained. So if I take a look at it, one of the things I can do is, if I can't figure out what am I missing, I can click on one of the points or one of the lines and just try to drag it around. And I can see that, oh, it's allowing that dimension to move in the horizontal direction. And I can see that this point right here should be coincident with that. I thought I put in a vertical relationship between those, but maybe I didn't get it in there quite right, so I'm going to put in a relationship. So now I'm going to say add relation, and I had a line selected, so I better click on it, delete that off. Now I'm going to go from this line to that point, and I'm going to make that coincident. Now that I made that coincident, I can say OK, hit escape. Now I can see all of my sketch is turned to black, which means that it is fully defined and it is ready to be mirrored. So now I can go in here, and before I click on mirror, I can actually select all of my geometry, and then I can say mirror entities, and it already had a center line in there, one center line, and I had all my selections, my geometry selected, or my sketch selected, so it automatically mirrored it for me, and it is all good to go. So now I can say exit sketch, go to my feature, my sketch is selected, extrude boss base. Now I can put in my final dimension, which is our 0.8180, hit enter, and we can say OK, and we have our part. It is all done now. So now I've got that in there. Now I'm going to go up and save it. I can go File, Save As. Make sure you save it as the SolidWorks part for now, but that's the one part you'll need. And that's how you make the retainer clip.